The bright fluorescent lights of Bedford International Airport buzzed overhead as Dr. Amara Johnson rolled her carry-on suitcase toward baggage claim. Her shoulders ached from the 5-hour flight, but a sense of accomplishment softened her exhaustion. The medical conference in Chicago had gone better than expected. Her research presentation on pediatric neurological procedures had received a standing ovation. She checked her watch, 9:17 p.m. If she could grab her checked bag quickly, she might make it home in time to kiss her daughter goodnight. The thought brought a smile to her face as she joined the crowd gathering around Carousel 3. Just need to get my bag and I can finally go home, she whispered to herself, scrolling through the missed texts on her phone. Her mother had sent several pictures of 6-year-old Zoe playing in the backyard, her smile missing 2 front teeth. Amara's heart swelled. 3 days away felt like an eternity. The baggage carousel jerked to life with a mechanical groan. Suitcases began tumbling onto the belt, passengers pressing forward eagerly. Amara stayed back, patient. The navy blue suitcase with the bright yellow tag would be easy enough to spot. She didn't notice the first officer entering the baggage claim area, nor the second. By the time she sensed something was wrong, 4 airport police officers had positioned themselves around the carousel, their eyes scanning the crowd with unsettling focus. Amara spotted her suitcase rounding the bend. She stepped forward, one hand reaching for the handle, when a sharp voice cut through the ambient noise. "Ma'am, don't move. Keep your hands where we can see them." The command froze her mid-step. Confused, she turned toward the voice and found herself staring into the barrel of a gun. Her breath caught in her throat. "What?" she began, but was immediately interrupted. "Put your hands up." Now, another officer had moved closer, his weapon also drawn. Time seemed to slow. The chattering crowd around her fell silent, then scattered, leaving a conspicuous empty space with Amara at its center. Her mind raced, medical training kicking in to keep her from panicking. Slow breath in, slow breath out. "I'm Dr. Amara Johnson," she said, her voice remarkably steady despite the hammering in her chest. "I'm just picking up my luggage. There must be some mistake." "Step away from the bag," the first officer commanded, ignoring her explanation. His stance was rigid, finger hovering near the trigger. Amara raised her hands slowly, deliberately, the way she'd teach nervous patients to move after spinal surgery. No sudden movements. The weight of dozens of eyes pressed upon her from all directions. Bystanders had backed away but remained close enough to witness whatever was unfolding. "I'm reaching for my ID," she said calmly, maintaining eye contact with the officer. "It's in my jacket pocket. Don't move." The officer's voice rose an octave. "Stay exactly where you are." A third officer approached, hand on his holstered weapon. "We received a report of a suspicious person matching your description carrying contraband through security." "That's impossible," Amara replied, keeping her hands visible. "I'm a neurosurgeon returning from a medical conference in Chicago. My hospital ID is in my pocket. My medical license, too." The officers exchanged glances but maintained their positions. The first officer spoke into his radio requesting backup. Amara's thoughts turned to Zoe. What if this situation escalated? What if her daughter had to learn about her mother on the evening news? Around her, passengers had their phones out, recording the confrontation. A woman in a business suit whispered to her companion, "This doesn't seem right." An elderly man shook his head in visible disapproval. "I'm going to lower my right hand very slowly," Amara announced, her medical training helping her maintain composure. "I'm reaching for my hospital ID in my right jacket pocket." The lead officer hesitated, then gave a terse nod. Amara moved her hand inch by inch, acutely aware of the weapons trained on her. Her fingers found the laminated Bedford Memorial Hospital identification card, and she extracted it with 2 fingers, holding it up for the officers to see. "Dr. Amara Johnson, Chief of Pediatric Neurosurgery," she said. "You can call the hospital to verify, please." One of the officers stepped forward cautiously to examine the ID, but his colleague shook his head. "Could be fake. We need to follow protocol." A wave of disbelief washed over Amara. The situation was absurd, dangerous, and all too familiar. Throughout her career, through medical school, residency, and even after becoming department chief, she had been questioned, doubted, and mistaken for someone else. But never at gunpoint. "Look at my luggage tag," she suggested, pointing with her chin toward her suitcase still circling on the carousel. It has my contact information and the hospital's address. Step back from the carousel, the officer ordered instead. Amara complied, taking 2 steps backward. What exactly am I suspected of? She asked, working to keep her voice level despite the growing knot in her stomach. The officers didn't answer. Another 2 airport security personnel joined them, widening the circle around her. 6 officials, at least 3 drawn weapons, for one tired doctor trying to go home to her daughter. A small crowd had gathered at a distance. Some looked concerned, others curious, many uncomfortable. A teenage girl whispered to her mother, who pulled her closer as if proximity to the scene might be dangerous. An older man in a business suit frowned deeply, his hands fidgeting with his phone as if debating whether to intervene. Dr. Amara Johnson, a voice called out from behind the security line. Is that really you? The officers tensed at the newcomer. A man in his 50s pushed through the gathered onlookers, his expression a mixture of concern and disbelief. Even in her state of heightened anxiety, Amara recognized him immediately. Mayor Thomas Chen. Mayor Chen, she said, relief evident in her voice. Yes, it's me. The officers exchanged uncertain glances as the mayor approached the security line. Officers, what seems to be the problem here? Mayor Chen asked, his authoritative tone a stark contrast to his casual travel attire of jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt. Sir, please stay back, one officer warned. We're handling a security situation. A security situation involving one of the finest surgeons in our city? The mayor's eyebrows rose. The doctor who performed life-saving surgery on my daughter last year? A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. Phones captured every word, every reaction. We received a credible tip about a suspicious individual, the lead officer explained, his certainty wavering slightly. We're following protocol. By drawing weapons on the head of pediatric neurosurgery at Bedford Memorial, Mayor Chen's voice carried across the baggage claim area. The woman who pioneered the Johnson method for pediatric brainstem procedures? The lead officer's radio crackled. He turned away slightly to listen, then spoke in hushed tones to his colleagues. Amara remained still, hands still raised, watching as confusion spread among the officers. Mayor Chen turned to address Amara directly. I'm so sorry about this, Dr. Johnson. I was on your flight from Chicago, sat in the back. Were you presenting at the National Medical Conference? Yes, she answered, grateful for the momentary normalcy in the surreal situation. My research on minimally invasive approaches to... Ma'am. The lead officer interrupted, his tone noticeably softer. It appears there may have been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Amara repeated, the word inadequate for the fear and humiliation she'd just experienced. The officer who had checked his radio stepped forward. We received an updated description of the suspect. It was not accurate. Mayor Chen's expression hardened. Not accurate. You drew weapons on a respected physician based on an inaccurate description? The crowd had grown, cell phones recording every moment of the confrontation. Airport staff hovered nervously at the edges, clearly uncertain how to handle the situation. You can lower your hands, Dr. Johnson, the lead officer said, finally holstering his weapon. The others followed suit. Amara slowly brought her arms down, the muscles aching from being held up so long. Relief flooded her system, quickly followed by anger, then a practiced professionalism that had served her through countless medical emergencies. I would like to collect my bag now, she said evenly. And I would appreciate an explanation of what just happened. The baggage carousel had stopped during the confrontation. An airport employee hurried to restart it at a nod from security. The Navy suitcase with the yellow tag appeared again, circling like nothing had happened. There will absolutely be an explanation, Mayor Chen assured her, his voice carrying to the still recording bystanders, and a full investigation into how this occurred. As Amara finally retrieved her suitcase, she became acutely aware of the weight of what had just happened, and what could have happened. One wrong move, one nervous officer, one moment of panic, and Zoe might have lost her mother tonight. The lead officer approached cautiously, offering what appeared to be an apologetic expression. Ma'am, we're going to need to take your statement about this incident. And I'll need yours, she replied firmly. Including badge numbers, the exact nature of the tip you received, and why deadly force was your first response. Mayor Chen placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. Dr. Johnson, my car's waiting outside. Let me give you a ride home. We can deal with the paperwork tomorrow." Amara nodded, suddenly exhausted beyond words. As they walked toward the exit, the crowd parted, some offering sympathetic smiles, others avoiding eye contact entirely. The officers watched them leave, their earlier confidence deflated. "Lily still talks about you, you know," the mayor said quietly as they walked. "She says you're the reason she wants to become a doctor." Despite everything, a small smile found its way to Amara's lips. "She's a bright girl. She'd make an excellent physician." As they approached the airport exit, Amara glanced back at the baggage claim area, where the officers were now huddled in conversation, occasionally glancing her way. The incident was over, but she knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a case of mistaken identity. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Zoe's still awake. She won't sleep until she gives you a hug." The simple message centered her. There would be time for anger later. Time for questions and consequences. But for now, she just wanted to hold her daughter. Mayor Chen's city-issued SUV pulled away from the airport curb, leaving behind the chaos of the baggage claim area. Amara sat in the passenger seat, her hands still trembling slightly as the adrenaline continued to course through her system. The driver, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, occasionally glanced in the rearview mirror at both of them but remained silent. "I still can't believe what just happened back there," Amara said, breaking the silence. She stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. 6 officers. Guns drawn. Because of what? An inaccurate description? Mayor Chen sighed heavily. "It's unacceptable. Completely unacceptable." He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "I'm texting Police Commissioner Rivera right now. He needs to know about this immediately." Amara closed her eyes, the scene replaying in her mind. The cold fear that had gripped her when she found herself staring down the barrel of a gun, the confused stares of onlookers, the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in a public space, and all while she was simply trying to get home to her daughter. "The hospital gala is next week," she said suddenly. "I'm supposed to give a speech about our new pediatric neurosurgery wing. How am I supposed to stand up there and pretend this didn't happen?" "You don't have to pretend," Mayor Chen replied, looking up from his phone. "What happened tonight was wrong. If you want to speak about it, you should." Amara turned to face him. And what would that accomplish? More empty promises? Another diversity training seminar for airport security? The mayor fell silent, acknowledging the truth in her words. The car turned onto Amara's street, lined with modest single-family homes with neat front yards. Most windows were dark at this hour, but Amara's house stood out with light still glowing from within. "Lily asks about you sometimes," the mayor said quietly as they approached her home. "She says you explained her condition in a way that made her feel brave instead of scared." Despite everything, Amara smiled slightly at the mention of her young patient. "Lily is naturally brave. I just helped her see it." The car pulled into Amara's driveway. Before she could reach for the door handle, it flew open. Zoe stood on the porch in her unicorn pajamas, bouncing with excitement. Behind her, Amara's mother waved. "We can talk more tomorrow," Mayor Chen said. "Go be with your family." Amara nodded gratefully and stepped out of the car. Zoe raced down the porch steps and launched herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy, you're finally home," Zoe squealed, wrapping her small arms around Amara's neck. Amara held her daughter tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. In this moment, the airport incident seemed far away, though she knew it would follow her into tomorrow and beyond. "I missed you so much, baby," she whispered. "Did you see any brains while you were gone?" Zoe asked earnestly, making Amara laugh despite everything. "Not this time. Just a lot of pictures of brains." She carried Zoe toward the house, turning back briefly to wave goodbye to Mayor Chen. His face was serious as he spoke on the phone, likely already dealing with the fallout of what had happened. Inside, Amara's mother hugged her tightly. "You look exhausted," she said, studying her daughter's face. "Bad flight?" "Something like that," Amara replied, not ready to share the full story. "I'll tell you later." After tucking Zoe into bed with promises of pancakes in the morning, Amara sank onto her living room couch and finally allowed herself to process what had happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from a colleague who had been at the same conference. "Are you okay? Seeing videos from the airport on social media. Call me." Amara's stomach dropped. Videos. Of course there were videos. She opened her social media and found her feed already filling with clips from different angles of her standing, with her hands up, surrounded by armed officers. Some posts expressed outrage, others demanded answers. A few commenters were already claiming she must have done something to warrant such a response. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Dr. Johnson, this is Diane Powell from the Bedford Daily News. We're running a story about the incident at the airport tonight. Would you care to comment?" Amara ended the call without answering. Within seconds, another call came through, another reporter. She turned off her phone. Across town, Mayor Chen sat in his home office, his dinner growing cold beside him as he reviewed the airport security footage that had been hastily sent over. On one screen, Amara could be seen calmly explaining herself to the officers. On another screen, timestamped 10 minutes earlier, security footage showed a completely different woman, younger, with different clothes, being flagged by a facial recognition system as a match for someone on a watch list. The mayor paused the footage, comparing the two women. They looked nothing alike, aside from both being black women with natural hair. The error was so obvious it was infuriating. His phone rang. "Mayor Chen. Thomas, it's Commissioner Rivera. I've suspended the officers involved pending investigation." "That's not enough, David," the mayor replied sharply. "I was there. I saw what happened. Those officers drew weapons on an unarmed civilian, on the chief of pediatric neurosurgery at our best hospital, based on what was clearly racial profiling. The system flagged. I don't care what the system flagged. I'm looking at the footage right now. These women look nothing alike. Nothing. And even if the system made an error, since when is our protocol to approach with weapons drawn before attempting any other form of communication?" Silence fell on the other end of the line. Finally, the commissioner spoke again. "What do you want me to do?" "I want a full review of the facial recognition technology being used at the airport. I want the body cam footage from every officer involved. I want a public statement by tomorrow morning acknowledging what happened and outlining specific steps being taken. And I want you to personally apologize to Dr. Johnson." "Thomas, this isn't just about tonight, David. This is about a pattern. And if we don't address it now head on, we're failing our community." After ending the call, the mayor stared at the frozen image of Amara on his screen, hands raised, dignity intact even in that terrible moment. His daughter Lily would have died last year if not for Dr. Johnson's skill and quick thinking. How many other lives had she saved? How many other black professionals in their city faced similar treatment without a mayor happening to be present? The next morning, Amara awoke to the sound of Zoe giggling in the kitchen with her grandmother. For a blissful moment, she forgot about the previous night. Then she checked her phone, which had dozens of missed calls, text messages, and social media notifications. One message stood out, from Mayor Chen. "Press conference at 10 a.m. Police Commissioner will issue formal apology. Your presence requested but not required. Understand completely if you choose not to attend." Amara stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to hide away, to protect herself and Zoe from the public scrutiny that would come with stepping into this spotlight. Another part knew that staying silent would change nothing. She walked into the kitchen where Zoe sat at the table, maple syrup dripping down her chin as she devoured the promised pancakes. "Morning. Sleepyhead," Amara's mother said, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter. "There's something you should see." She nodded toward the television in the corner of the kitchen, where the local morning news was playing. On screen, a serious-looking anchor was speaking. "Breaking news this morning. As Mayor Thomas Chen has called for an immediate review of security protocols at Bedford International Airport following an incident last night involving prominent neurosurgeon Dr. Amara Johnson. Footage showing airport police drawing weapons on Dr. Johnson in what appears to be a case of mistaken identity has gone viral overnight, sparking outrage across social media. The screen showed a clip from the airport, Amara with her hands up, surrounded by officers with weapons drawn. Then it cut to Mayor Chen speaking to reporters. Outside the airport, "What happened tonight was unacceptable and inexcusable. Dr. Amara Johnson is a respected physician who has saved countless lives in our community, including my own daughter's. The fact that she was treated this way based on what is clearly a case of racial profiling demands immediate action and accountability." Amara's mother turned to her, eyes wide. "What happened last night?" Before Amara could answer, her phone rang again, This time it was the hospital administrator. Amara, are you all right? The board is meeting in an hour to discuss the airport incident and our response. Many of us feel the hospital should issue a statement of support. I'll be there, Amara said, making her decision, and afterward I'll be attending the mayor's press conference. After hanging up, she knelt beside Zoe, who was happily oblivious to the adult's concerns as she arranged her pancake pieces into a smiley face. Mommy has to go to some meetings today, sweetie. Grandma will stay with you. But you just got home, Zoe pouted. I know, and I'm sorry, but this is important. Sometimes when something unfair happens, you have to speak up about it. Like when Joey took my crayons at school and said they were his. Amara smiled. Something like that, yes, but bigger. As she showered and dressed for the day ahead, Amara thought about all the times in her career she had stayed silent in the face of microaggressions and discrimination. The patient who refused to believe she was really the surgeon, the colleague who suggested she was only hired to fill a quota, the countless times she was mistaken for a nurse or an aide. She had always believed that excellence was the answer, that if she worked twice as hard and achieved enough, respect would follow. Last night had shattered that illusion in the most public and humiliating way possible. Standing in front of her mirror, Amara straightened her blazer and lifted her chin. Today she would not stay silent. Today she would use her voice not just for herself, but for everyone who had faced similar treatment without a mayor to witness it, without cameras to record it, without a platform to speak out. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thinking it might be another reporter, she almost ignored it. Instead, she glanced down and saw, Dr. Johnson, this is Lily Chen. Dad told me what happened. I'm so sorry. You're the bravest person I know. With renewed determination, Amara grabbed her keys and headed for the door. The day ahead would be difficult, but for Lily, for Zoe, and for herself, she would face it head-on. Cameras flashed as Amara walked into the hospital boardroom. The faces of her colleagues, people she had worked alongside for years, showed a mix of concern, sympathy, and uncomfortable uncertainty. Dr. Patel, the hospital director, immediately stood and pulled out a chair for her. We didn't expect you to come in today, Amara, he said quietly. You could have joined by video call. I wanted to be here in person, she replied, setting her bag down and taking a seat. What happened last night affects not just me, but the reputation of this hospital and the safety of our staff. Around the table, heads nodded in agreement. The hospital's public relations director, Nancy Wu, spoke next. Dr. Johnson, we've drafted a statement condemning the treatment you received and expressing our full support for you. She slid a printed paper across the table. We wanted your approval before releasing it. Amara skimmed the carefully worded text. It was professional, appropriately outraged, but ultimately safe. Nothing that would ruffle too many feathers or demand real change. This is fine as a starting point, she said, looking up. But I think we need to go further. A nervous glance passed between several board members. What did you have in mind? Dr. Patel asked. Bedford Memorial is the largest employer in the city. We have influence, Amara said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. I propose we use that influence to push for concrete changes in how airport security operates. No more facial recognition technology without proper oversight. No more approaching unarmed civilians with weapons drawn as a first response. Those are matters for law enforcement, not healthcare, one of the older board members objected. Healthcare includes caring for the whole person, Amara countered. How many of our patients, our black and brown patients especially, face similar treatment in their daily lives? How does that affect their health outcomes, their trust in institutions, including this hospital? The room fell silent as her words sank in. What exactly are you suggesting? Dr. Patel asked finally. I want the hospital to fund a community task force, Amara said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Healthcare professionals, law enforcement, community leaders, and regular citizens working together to address discriminatory practices in public safety. The PR director was already taking notes, nodding thoughtfully. This could position Bedford Memorial as a leader in community health beyond just medical care. It's not about positioning, Amara corrected her gently. It's about doing what's right. After further discussion, the board voted unanimously to support both the statement and Amara's proposed task force. As the meeting wrapped up, Dr. Patel pulled her aside. Are you sure you're ready for the press conference? It's going to be intense, Amara checked her watch. She had 45 minutes to get to City Hall. No, she admitted. But I'm going anyway. Outside the hospital, Amara was surprised to find a small group of hospital staff, nurses, technicians, custodians, and several doctors gathered near her car. Many held handmade signs. "We stand with Dr. Johnson and respect our healthcare heroes." A young black resident physician stepped forward. "We wanted you to know you're not alone," she said, her voice slightly shaky. "What happened to you has happened to many of us in different ways. We're tired of staying silent." Amara felt a lump forming in her throat. "Thank you," she managed to say. "Would some of you like to join me at the press conference?" 20 minutes later, Amara walked into City Hall with a dozen hospital employees behind her. The show of solidarity gave her strength as she approached the crowded press room, where reporters were already setting up cameras and microphones. Mayor Chen spotted her immediately and walked over. "Dr. Johnson, thank you for coming." He lowered his voice. "Commissioner Rivera will be making a formal apology, but I want you to know I've demanded more than just words. The officers involved have been suspended, and we're bringing in an outside agency to review all security protocols at the airport." Amara nodded. "I appreciate that, but I'm here to speak for myself today." The mayor studied her face. "Of course. You'll have the podium after the commissioner." As they took their places at the front of the room, Amara noticed the police commissioner shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Several of the officers from the airport incident sat in the back row, faces grim. Mayor Chen stepped up to the microphone first. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As many of you know, last night at Bedford International Airport, Dr. Amara Johnson was wrongfully detained by airport police in a manner that was both dangerous and degrading. I witnessed this incident personally, and I want to be clear. What happened was unacceptable and reflects a failure in our systems that must be addressed immediately." Camera shutters clicked rapidly as he continued, outlining the immediate actions being taken. Then he introduced Commissioner Rivera, who approached the podium with visible reluctance. "On behalf of the Bedford Police Department and Airport Authority, I want to extend our sincerest apologies to Dr. Johnson," he began, reading from prepared notes. "An investigation is already underway to determine how this misidentification occurred and why proper protocols were not followed." From where she sat, Amara could see the commissioner was choosing his words carefully, walking a line between apologizing and avoiding any admission that might create legal liability. He spoke about unfortunate incidents and learning opportunities without ever directly acknowledging the role of racial bias. When it was her turn to speak, Amara took a deep breath and approached the podium. Camera flashes intensified and she blinked against their brightness. "My name is Dr. Amara Johnson. I'm the Chief of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Bedford Memorial Hospital. Last night I was returning home from a medical conference where I presented research that could help save children's lives. Instead of collecting my luggage and going home to my daughter, I found myself surrounded by armed officers who treated me like a criminal." Her voice remained steady as she recounted the experience in clear, simple terms. She described the fear, the humiliation, and the knowledge that without the mayor's intervention, the situation could have ended very differently. "I'm not here today to accept apologies," she continued. "I'm here to demand change. Not just for myself, but for everyone who has faced similar treatment without cameras present, without a mayor to witness it, without the privilege of a title that eventually earned me the benefit of the doubt." At the back of the room, several of her hospital colleagues nodded in support. This isn't just about one incident or one mistake. This is about systems that consistently fail Black Americans and other people of color. Facial recognition technology that can't accurately identify our features. Security protocols that jump to the most dangerous conclusions. A culture that sees us as threats before seeing us as human beings. Commissioner Rivera shifted in his seat, his discomfort visible. "I propose 3 specific changes," Amara said, her voice growing stronger. "First, a complete review and overhaul of the facial recognition system being used at our airport. Second, new protocols that require officers to attempt verbal communication before drawing weapons in nonviolent situations. And third, the creation of a civilian oversight committee with real power to hold law enforcement accountable." She paused, looking directly at the cameras. "I love this city. I've chosen to build my career and raise my daughter here. But I want her to grow up in a place where she won't fear being mistaken for someone else because of the color of her skin." The room erupted with questions as she stepped away from the podium. Mayor Chen moved to her side. fielding the most aggressive reporters while Commissioner Rivera sat stiffly, his expression unreadable. A reporter called out above the noise, "Dr. Johnson, do you plan to file a lawsuit against the city or the police department?" Amara returned to the microphone. "My focus right now is on creating meaningful change, not seeking damages. But I will use every available tool to ensure that what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." As the press conference wrapped up, Amara felt both drained and strangely energized. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Zoe and I are watching you on TV. She says you look like a superhero." The thought of her daughter watching brought tears to her eyes. For Zoe's sake, she would not back down from this fight. Outside City Hall, a larger crowd had gathered. To Amara's surprise, many were holding signs similar to those her hospital colleagues had made. News of the incident had clearly spread quickly through the community. Mayor Chen walked her to her car. "That was powerful, Dr. Johnson. But you should know, not everyone will support these changes. There will be pushback. I'm counting on it," Amara replied. "Change doesn't come without resistance." As she drove home, Amara's phone rang through her car speakers. It was Dr. Patel from the hospital. "Amara, I just watched the press conference. The board is fully behind you. We're already getting calls from other hospitals around the country, wanting to know how they can support similar initiatives in their cities." "That's unexpected," Amara said, surprised. "Sometimes it takes one person with the courage to speak out," Dr. Patel replied. "But listen, there's something else. The Gibson Foundation called. They want to discuss funding for your proposed task force." The Gibson Foundation was the largest philanthropic organization in the state, with resources that could turn Amara's hastily proposed idea into a powerful reality. "Set up the meeting," she said. "And Dr. Patel? Thank you for your support." As she pulled into her driveway, Amara saw Zoe waiting at the window, her small hands pressed against the glass. For a moment, the weight of what she had just stepped into threatened to overwhelm her. She had never wanted to be an activist or the face of a movement. She had simply wanted to be a doctor, a mother, a person allowed to exist without fear. But as her daughter raced out to meet her, Amara knew she had made the right choice. This wasn't just about what had happened at the airport. It was about building a world where Zoe could grow up without carrying the same burdens, without having to be twice as good to be seen as equal. "Did you fix the unfair thing?" Zoe asked as Amara scooped her up. "Not yet, sweetheart," Amara replied, holding her daughter close. "But I've started." 1 week after the airport incident, Amara sat in a conference room at the Gibson Foundation headquarters, surrounded by presentation boards and statistical charts. The foundation's director, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Gibson, studied the proposal in front of her with piercing attention. "Your community safety task force is ambitious, Dr. Johnson," she said, finally looking up. "Bringing together healthcare workers, law enforcement, and community members to address systemic issues in public safety isn't something I've seen attempted at this scale." Amara nodded. "Ambitious, yes, but necessary." Patricia tapped her pen against the table thoughtfully. "The airport incident has certainly created a moment of public attention. But these moments fade. What happens when the news cycle moves on? That's exactly why this task force is so important," Amara replied. "We need to create lasting structural change while people are still paying attention." The foundation director leaned forward. "You've never done this kind of advocacy work before, have you?" "No," Amara admitted. "I'm a surgeon. I fix problems I can see. This is different. These problems have roots that go back generations. They don't respond to quick fixes." "I understand that," Amara said, meeting the older woman's gaze steadily. "But I also understand systems. The human body is the most complex system there is. When something's broken, you don't just treat the symptoms, you find the underlying cause." A slight smile crossed Patricia's face. "Fair enough." She closed the folder and stood up. "The Gibson Foundation will provide initial funding of $2 million for your task force, with the possibility of renewal based on demonstrable outcomes." Amara felt a rush of both relief and apprehension. The funding would make the task force a reality, but now she had to deliver results. "Thank you," she said, standing to shake Patricia's hand. "You won't regret this." "I hope not," Patricia replied, "because there are plenty of people who would love to see this initiative fail." As if to prove her point, Amara's phone buzzed with a news alert as she left the building. She checked the screen and felt her stomach tighten. Police union questions airport incident narrative. Claims officers followed protocol. In her car, Amara turned on the radio to catch the news report. The Bedford Police Union held a press conference today defending the officers involved in last week's airport incident with Dr. Amara Johnson. Union President Frank Walsh stated that the officers acted according to their training when responding to a facial recognition system alert. She switched it off, needing a moment of silence. The pushback was beginning just as Mayor Chen had warned. Her phone rang, the hospital's number. "Dr. Johnson," she answered, trying to keep the weariness from her voice. "Amara? It's Nancy from PR. Have you seen the police union statement? We should get ahead of this." "I just heard it on the radio," Amara replied. "What are they saying exactly?" "They're claiming the officers acted appropriately given the information they had. They're also questioning why you didn't comply more quickly with their commands." Amara's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I had 6 guns pointed at me while trying to pick up my luggage. I complied with every command they gave." I know, Nancy said quickly. "Look, we need to respond. The board is suggesting a joint statement with the mayor's office." "I'll be at the hospital in 20 minutes, Amara said, ending the call. When she arrived, the administrative floor was buzzing with activity. Dr. Patel waved her into his office, where Mayor Chen was already waiting. "The police union is pushing back hard," the mayor said without preamble. "They're feeling cornered by the suspensions and the public criticism." "They should feel cornered," Amara replied. "Their officers pointed guns at an innocent person based on faulty facial recognition and racial profiling." "I agree," Mayor Chen said, "but we need to be strategic. Commissioner Rivera is caught in the middle, trying to support his officers while also acknowledging that mistakes were made." Dr. Patel cleared his throat. "The hospital board is concerned about becoming too political. They support you, Amara, but they're worried about alienating patients and donors who might have different views on law enforcement." Amara looked between the two men, a realization dawning. "You want me to tone it down?" she said flatly. "To accept their apology and move on?" "Not at all," the mayor said quickly. "But perhaps we could focus on the technology failure, rather than the broader implications. The facial recognition system clearly needs improvement. That's something everyone can agree on." "The technology didn't point guns at me," Amara said, her voice quiet but firm. "People did. People who saw a black woman and immediately assumed the worst." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. "The Gibson Foundation approved funding for the task force," she continued. $2 million to create real change in how public safety works in this city. Are you both still with me on this, or am I on my own now?" Mayor Chen sighed. "Of course we're with you. But change is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to pace ourselves." Amara stood up. "Tell that to the people who don't have the luxury of pacing themselves. The ones who face these dangers every day without a mayor to intervene." She left the office feeling both disappointed and more determined than ever. In the hallway, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dr. Johnson, this is Officer Diane Powell. I was at the airport that night. I want to talk." Amara stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Officer Powell had been one of the 6 officers surrounding her, though not the one who had first drawn her weapon. After a moment of hesitation, Amara replied, "When and where?" The response came quickly. "Today, if possible. Somewhere private." They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop near the hospital. When Amara arrived, she immediately spotted Officer Powell sitting in a corner booth, out of uniform in jeans and a sweater. She looked younger than Amara had remembered. "Thank you for meeting me," Officer Powell said as Amara slid into the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Amara admitted. "Why did you want to talk?" The officer glanced around nervously. "The union doesn't speak for all of us. What happened that night, it wasn't right. The description we received didn't match you at all. And our approach was completely disproportionate to the situation." Amara studied the woman's face, trying to reconcile this seemingly earnest person with one of the officers who had pointed a gun at her. "Then why did you do it?" she asked simply. Officer Powell looked down at her coffee. "Because that's how we're trained. The facial recognition system flags someone, and we're taught to treat it as a high-risk situation. No questions asked, even when it's obviously wrong, especially then," Powell said quietly. "We're told that questioning the technology could put us in danger. That hesitation could get us killed." Amara leaned forward. "Do you know how often the system misidentifies people of color compared to white people?" "I didn't," Powell admitted. Not until after what happened with you. I looked into it. The error rates are significantly higher for black women especially. So what are you saying? I'm saying I want to help, Powell replied. There are others in the department who feel the same way. We want better training, better technology, better approaches. But speaking against the union is complicated. Would you be willing to join the task force? Amara asked. We need voices from within law enforcement. Officer Powell hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but it might have to be unofficial at first. As they continued talking, Amara began to see a different perspective on the system that had put them on opposite sides that night at the airport. For Officer Powell and others like her, the rigid protocols and over-reliance on technology had created a situation where they felt they had no choice but to respond with excessive force, even when their human judgment might have told them otherwise. When Amara returned home that evening, she found her mother and Zoe in the kitchen making dinner. The sight of them, Zoe standing on a chair to reach the counter, her grandmother guiding her small hands as she stirred something in a bowl, brought a rush of love that momentarily pushed aside the day's tensions. Mommy, Zoe called out, we're making your favorite pasta. I see that, Amara said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. It smells amazing. Her mother gave her a knowing look. Rough day? Complicated, Amara replied. The police union is pushing back, and even the mayor and the hospital seem nervous about rocking the boat too much. Not surprising, her mother said with a sigh. Change is hard. People resist it, especially when it challenges their power. I met with one of the officers from that night, Amara said, lowering her voice so Zoe wouldn't hear. She wants to help. Her mother raised an eyebrow. Can you trust her? I don't know yet. But I think we need allies from every side if this is going to work. After dinner, once Zoe was tucked into bed, Amara sat at her dining room table surrounded by papers, research on facial recognition bias, police training manuals, community oversight models from other cities. The task force's first meeting was scheduled for the following week, and she wanted to be fully prepared. Her phone rang. Mayor Chen calling. I owe you an apology, he said when she answered. You were right this afternoon. We can't water this down or focus only on the technology. The problems are deeper than that. What changed your mind? Amara asked. Lily, he replied. My daughter. She asked me what I was doing to make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to her friends or to her someday. I didn't have a good answer. I met with one of the officers today, Amara told him. She wants to help reform the system from within. I think there are others who feel the same way. That's unexpected, the mayor said. Maybe not. Nobody wants to work in a broken system, not even the people who benefit from it. They talked for another hour, outlining a more comprehensive approach for the task force, one that wouldn't shy away from addressing difficult truths about race and policing, while still bringing all stakeholders to the table. As Amara finally prepared for bed, exhausted but hopeful, she checked her email one last time. There was a message from Patricia Gibson at the foundation. Dr. Johnson, I've been following today's developments with interest. The pushback you're experiencing is to be expected. Real change never comes easily. The Gibson Foundation remains committed to your task force, and I would like to offer my personal support as well. Sometimes the most important thing is simply refusing to back down. Keep going. Amara smiled as she set her phone aside. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time since the airport incident, she felt certain she wasn't walking it alone. In her bedroom, Zoe had left a drawing on Amara's pillow, a stick figure in a white coat standing tall, with the words, "My mom fixes people," written in crooked letters across the top. Not just people, Amara whispered to herself as she tucked the drawing carefully into her bedside drawer. Systems too. 3 months after the airport incident, Amara stood at the podium in the City Hall auditorium, looking out at the diverse faces that made up the Community Safety Task Force. What had begun as a response to her personal trauma had grown into something far larger than herself, a genuine movement for change in Bedford. As we mark our 3-month milestone, she began, I want to thank everyone in this room for your commitment and courage. When we started, many said this task force would fall apart after a few weeks, that we couldn't possibly bring together such different perspectives. Healthcare workers, police officers, community activists, city officials, to address problems that have existed for generations. She paused, looking around the room. Officer Powell sat near the front, now openly involved despite initial resistance from the police union. Mayor Chen was there too, along with Commissioner Rivera, whose initial reluctance had gradually evolved into cautious support. Patricia Gibson from the foundation sat in the back, observing with her characteristic intensity. "But here we are," Amara continued, "and we've accomplished more than many thought possible." On the screen behind her, she displayed their progress. The airport's facial recognition system had been temporarily suspended, pending a complete overhaul with new standards for accuracy across all racial groups. The police department had implemented new training protocols requiring officers to attempt verbal communication before drawing weapons in non-violent situations. And a civilian oversight committee with real enforcement power was in the final stages of approval by the city council. "These are important first steps," Amara said, "but they're just that, first steps. The real work is changing minds and hearts, not just policies." After the meeting, Amara gathered her things as people broke into smaller discussion groups. Officer Powell approached her looking tired but determined. "That was a good speech," she said, "but I wanted to let you know. There's still a lot of resistance in the department. Some officers feel like they're being blamed for systemic problems they didn't create." Amara nodded. "I understand that. And they're right. The problems go far beyond individual officers. But that doesn't mean we can keep doing things the same way." "I agree," Powell said. "I just thought you should know what we're up against." As Officer Powell walked away, Commissioner Rivera took her place. The police commissioner had been the most reluctant participant in the task force, often attending meetings with a defensive posture that made real dialogue difficult. "Dr. Johnson," he said formally, "I've been reviewing the data on our new approach to airport security, the verbal engagement protocols we implemented last month." "And?" Amara asked, trying to keep the wariness from her voice. To her surprise, the commissioner smiled slightly. "And it's working. Incidents are down. Complaints are down. Most importantly, my officers report feeling more confident in their interactions with the public." "That's wonderful news," Amara said, genuinely pleased. "I was skeptical," the commissioner admitted. "I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. Change doesn't come easily to institutions like ours, but sometimes," he hesitated, "sometimes we need to be pushed." As people filed out of the auditorium, Mayor Chen caught up with Amara in the hallway. "Big day next week," he said. "The city council vote on the oversight committee." Amara nodded. They had worked hard to craft a proposal that balanced meaningful accountability with practical implementation. The vote would be close, with several council members still on the fence. "Do you think it will pass?" she asked. "I think so," the mayor replied. "But there's something else we need to discuss." He lowered his voice. "The governor called me this morning. She's been following what we're doing here in Bedford. She wants to create a statewide version of our task force, and she wants you to lead it." Amara stopped walking, taken aback. "Me? I'm a neurosurgeon, not a policy expert." "You're both," Mayor Chen said simply. "You understand systems, how they work, how they break, how to fix them, and you have the moral authority that comes from personal experience." "I need to think about it," Amara said, her mind racing. A statewide role would mean stepping back from surgery, at least temporarily. It would mean more time away from Zoe, but it would also mean the chance to create change on a much larger scale. That evening, as Amara drove home, her phone rang through the car speakers. It was Dr. Patel from the hospital. "Amara, have you seen the news?" "No, I've been in task force meetings all day." "What happened?" "There was another incident at the airport. A young black man was stopped by security based on what they're calling suspicious behavior. But this time the officers followed the new protocols. No weapons drawn, clear verbal communication. The situation was resolved peacefully. Amara felt a surge of emotion, pride mixed with a profound sense of relief. The changes they had fought for were actually making a difference in real people's lives. "That's how it should work," she said. "Exactly," Dr. Patel replied. "And one more thing. Remember that research position you applied for before all this happened? The one studying pediatric brain development?" Amara had almost forgotten. 3 months ago, before the airport incident changed everything, she had applied for a prestigious research grant to study innovative surgical approaches for children with rare, Neurological conditions. The committee approved your funding, Dr. Patel continued. Full amount 3-year commitment. That's amazing, Amara said, trying to process this unexpected news alongside everything else. But with everything going on with the task force, they know about your advocacy work, Dr. Patel interrupted. They see it as a strength, not a distraction. As they put it, someone who can recognize and address systemic problems in society will bring the same clear-eyed approach to medical research. When Amara arrived home, she found her mother and Zoe in the backyard, planting flowers in the garden they had started together. For a moment, she just watched them through the window, her mother patiently showing Zoe how to press the seeds into the soil, her daughter's face serious with concentration. These quiet moments of normalcy had become precious anchors in the whirlwind her life had become. "Mommy's home," Zoe shouted, spotting her through the window. The little girl raced inside, her hands still covered in dirt, and wrapped her arms around Amara's legs. "Look what we're doing. We're planting sunflowers and they're going to grow taller than the house." "That's wonderful, sweetie," Amara said, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "You know, plants are a little like people. They need the right conditions to grow strong. Like water and sun and good dirt?" Zoe asked. "Exactly," Amara smiled. "And people need the right conditions too, like safety and fairness and being treated with respect." Zoe considered this seriously. "Is that what you're doing with your meetings? Making good growing conditions for people?" "That's exactly what we're trying to do," Amara said, struck by her daughter's simple but profound understanding. Later that night, after Zoe was asleep, Amara sat on her back porch with her mother, sharing a pot of tea as they often did. "The governor wants me to lead a statewide task force," Amara said, still processing the offer herself. "And the research grant came through." Her mother nodded thoughtfully. "You know, when you were little, I always worried about you. You felt things so deeply, every injustice, every unfairness. I thought the world might break your heart." "It still might," Amara admitted. "No," her mother said firmly, "because you're not just feeling the pain anymore, you're doing something about it. That makes all the difference." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the neighborhood. "So what will you do?" her mother finally asked. "The governor's offer, the research grant, your surgical practice, that's a lot for one person." Amara sighed. "I don't know yet. But I think I need to keep one foot in both worlds, the hospital and the advocacy work, because each one makes me better at the other." The next morning, Amara woke early and went for a run through her neighborhood as the sun was rising. As her feet hit the pavement in a steady rhythm, she thought about the path that had brought her here, from that terrifying moment at the airport with guns pointed at her, to becoming an unexpected leader for change. She had never wanted this role, had never imagined herself as anything but a surgeon, focused on healing one patient at a time. Yet here she was, helping to heal systems that affected thousands of lives. When she returned home, she made a decision. She would accept the governor's offer, but on her own terms, working part-time on the statewide initiative while maintaining her surgical practice and research. She would bring her medical perspective to policy work, and her understanding of systemic issues back to healthcare. As she prepared for the day ahead, her phone buzzed with a text from Mayor Chen. "City Council vote moved up. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we need you there." Followed by another message, this one from Officer Powell. "Just heard about the vote. Several officers planning to attend in support. Change is happening." Amara smiled as she set her phone down. The path forward wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and resistance, victories and compromises. But something fundamental had shifted in Bedford and perhaps beyond, because she had refused to stay silent. She thought back to what she had told Zoe on the night she returned from the airport. When her daughter asked if she had fixed the unfair thing, "Not yet, sweetheart, but I've started." Now 3 months later, she could finally say with confidence they had more than just started. They had created momentum that would continue to build long after the memory of that night at the airport had faded from the news cycle. And perhaps most importantly, she had shown Zoe and herself that one person standing up and speaking truth could inspire others to do the same. That together they could change not just policies and protocols, but the very conditions that allowed injustice to flourish. That was a legacy worth building, one day at a time.